Chase. I'm a professional storyteller and teaching artist, and I perform, and I also teach storytelling to students and adults. By accident, I was at a teachers conference in New Hampshire, and we had a wonderful storyteller for our entertainment, and I didn't even know the profession existed, but I knew I wanted to do it. And so I started taking workshops and going to conferences, and that's how I started. Well, the woman's name that I heard tell the first time, her name is Roberta Wolfson, and she's from New Hampshire. She had grown up in Africa, and a lot of the stories she told were folk tales that her nanny had told her, and she interwove those with personal tales. Probably not storytelling if I had never heard her, because as I said, I didn't know the profession existed, and at the time I was a preschool teacher and loved doing that, and I might have stayed with that. No, not until I started storytelling. Other than, I come from a very large Irish family, extended family, with cousins too numerous to count, and whenever I was growing up, my mother's brothers and sisters, they always had to tell a song or a joke or tell a story at a party, and so I grew up around that kind of storytelling all my life. So being Irish, I guess I have the gift of gab too, so it helps. This is a story from Persia called The Sign of the Tassel. Many years ago, there was a Persian carpet merchant by the name of Nadir. Every day when he dressed for work, he took great care with his appearance. And he always wore his favorite hat, a red felt fez with a black tassel hanging down the side. His shop was just as neat. People came from miles around to purchase his rugs, for it was said you could search the land over and never find rugs more beautiful than those that hung on the walls or graced the floors of his shop. It was further said you could feel the rich thickness of the wool beneath the soles of your sandals. And if the morning sun was coming through the window at just the right angle, their brilliant colors would blind you for a moment. Such was the shop of Nadir, and he had a warm greeting and kind word for everyone who came into his shop, even those who browsed for hours and left without buying so much as a prayer rug. For he was a shrewd businessman and always said, "You never know when they'll return to become a paying customer." Well, every afternoon, his wife, Zahara, came to bring him his noonday meal. She began to notice how kind he was to his customers. And she began to remember how sometimes he came home in a very foul mood, with angry words spewing from his lips. Why, he would come through the door, slam that door, throw down his fez, and complain about the supper she prepared. She was his wife. Didn't she deserve the same kindness he gave to his customers? And so one night when he came storming into the house, she waited until he was settled in his favorite chair, and she said, "Husband, what angers you so?" "What angers me? I'll tell you what angers me. Those people, they come into my shop, they unfurl my rugs, they spill their cups of chai tea, and then they expect me to sell them a rug for the price of a fig." Well, she thought to tell him that she wasn't the one who made a mess of his shop, but she held her tongue, as she had for years. For now, she had a plan. She walked over to his chair, set down a cup of tea, kissed him on the forehead, and said, "Husband, I've been wondering, you are so wise. Perhaps you could come up with an idea, a sign that you could give me, so I will know when you come home that you have had a difficult day, and then I will not be hurt by any of your unkind words or actions." Now he sat in his chair and stroked his long beard, and he thought for a moment and then a moment more, and he said, "Aha! Here is what I shall do. You know I wear my favorite fez every day. Well, if you see me coming down the road with the tassel hanging down in front of my face instead of the side, then you will know I have had a difficult day. and you should not be hurt by any of my words or actions. Oh, husband, I knew you would find a solution. You are wise beyond words. You know, perhaps you could think of another solution. You see, sometimes I have a difficult day as well. Why, the children of the village run through my vegetable garden, and the dog escapes the yard, and your mother comes for an unannounced visit and spends the entire day trying to tell me how to care for you, her only child. Well, it is nothing but aggravation from morning until night. Perhaps I need a sign as well. Once more. He stroked his long beard and thought for a moment and then a moment more and said, I have it, this is what you shall do. If I come home and I see you have tied a white apron around your waist, then I will know you have had a difficult day. And so it was. The next day, Zahara stood peeking out behind a curtained window, watching for Nadir to come down the road. And as soon as he rounded the corner, she could see that black tassel going back and forth in front of his face like a horse swatting flies. She ran into the kitchen, tied that white apron around her waist, and she stepped outside on the porch and she waited. Well, as he came closer, he looked up and he saw his wife, and he saw the white apron. What to do? He stopped in the middle of the road, reached up, and moved the tassel to the side of his fez. Now, a few days later, Zahara was once more looking out that curtain window, and as soon as Nadir came around the corner, she noticed that his feet were pounding the dirt with such fury that he had created a sandstorm around him. She ran into the kitchen, tied on that white apron, and stepped outside. Now, as he came closer, his steps slowed, and the sandstorm began to settle. And he looked up, and he saw Zahara. Once more, he reached up and pulled the tassel to the side of his fez. Now, third night, the same thing happened. And after a very quiet dinner, Nadir spoke. I would like to discuss something with you, my wife. It's quite a coincidence that when I have had a difficult day, it seems that you have had a difficult day as well. Well, I have had to put aside my anger for yours, for who knows what might happen if we both lost our tempers at the same time. Oh, husband, I hadn't noticed, but as usual, you are wise indeed. Yes, who knows what might happen if we each put aside our anger for the other. Why, we might never argue again. And she began to sip her wine slowly. Nadir sat there and thought for a moment and then a moment more, and slowly a smile began to tickle the corners of his mouth. Then he said, you are right. Who knows what might happen when a husband can put aside his anger as easily as moving a tassel, and he has a very clever wife. And slowly they lifted their glasses of wine and toasted to each other. I hope so, which is why I teach students from grades 3 to 7 to learn the art of oral tradition of storytelling. It is actually really an ancient tradition, and centuries ago, the storyteller held a very prominent place in the courts of kings around the world, and so they're very venerated. And the students that I teach learn the art of storytelling and why it is important, but it's also a public speaking skill that will help them later on in life. It will help them when they're having a college interview, maybe going for a job or giving a presentation in school. It is something that will help them throughout their lives. Well, one of my goals was to write a book, which I did. It was published a few years ago. It's called Story by Story, Building a Student Storytelling Troupe to help others who want to bring storytelling into their school system or libraries. My next goal is to record a CD of my favorite folk tales and fairy tales, and I would also like to write another book that has to do with adapting some of the ancient folk tales for the modern ear. Oh, favorite authors. As far as storytelling, I know some of the authors that I love their books that help with the art of storytelling. Doug Littman is a wonderful teller, and actually he's receiving a Circle of Excellence Award this year at the National Conference. I like his work to help you with the skills of storytelling. I also like Margaret Reed MacDonald, who is a folklorist and a librarian, and she's international, has traveled around the world. I like her work as well. But I also like to read different folktales and fairy tales from around the world, from different cultures. It's interesting to see how folktales have traveled. A lot of people think Cinderella is unique to Disney, when actually there's over 500 versions of Cinderella from around the world. So it's interesting to see how each culture puts their stamp on an ancient folktale.
My name is David Mello. I'm the Supervisor of Children's Services here at the Fall River Public Library, and have been so for some time now. And how did I get into storytelling? Well, it's kind of a story in itself. Prior to being the children's librarian here, I worked at the South Branch Library for some time. And when the children's librarian eventually retired, I interviewed for the position, but was not sure if I wanted it or not, because one of the job requirements was that you do a story time and you read to children and their parents. And it was something I didn't know if I wanted to really get involved in, you know, reading in front of kids and parents, maybe looking silly, doing silly voices and all. But to make a long story short, I took the position, and it became one of the parts of my job that I love the most. And it's one of the aspects of my job that I think is one of the most important aspects, because we're supposed to make reading exciting for children, make reading and books and the whole library experience something that they want to be involved in, something that they want to make a part of their life. And if you can make books seem exciting and storytelling exciting through sharing books with children, I think that's just a wonderful thing to do. And again, one of the most important components, I think, of my job here. He is the icky, sticky monster, and this is his story. Icky, sticky monster is playing hide and seek. If you're feeling brave enough, you can take a peek. Icky, sticky monster is being very naughty. That stinky little monster is hiding in the potty. Icky, sticky monster has an itchy nose. He pokes his grubby finger in, and round it goes. Icky, sticky monster pulls out some snotty goo, and because he's feeling very kind, he's giving some to you. Icky, sticky monster has a rumbly, grumbly belly. He's looking for some lunch to eat, something nice and smelly. Icky, sticky monster finds the perfect lunch, a trash can full of gloopy treats and moldy things to munch. And just look in there, I see some old dirty socks, I see fish bones, I see broken eggs. It's disgusting. Icky, sticky monster sits down for a rest. He's feeling very thirsty, and he knows what he likes best. Icky, sticky monster. My background in storytelling can kind of coincide with my interest that I've always had in the theater and in movies. I love movies. I love the theater, and it's storytelling primarily. And I remember always admiring when I was in school, you know, junior high and high school, even in college, admiring the students in the acting programs there. And I always wanted to be on stage, but I never had the courage to step up on the stage and perform. It was only when I graduated from college that I did, as a, you know, working adult. And I was bitten by the acting bug at that time, and shortly thereafter, working here at the library, I was given the opportunity to do, I was invited to do some ghost stories, I remember, for a program on board the battleship Massachusetts. This was probably a good 25, 26 years ago. And the program turned out very well. It got a good reception from the audience. I was invited back the following week to do another program on board the battleship, a Halloween party, another one. That went over very well. And then those two experiences, they just snowballed into an ongoing job that I have at the battleship as well. I get to go on the battleship on a weekly basis and share stories with literally people that come from all over the country to visit the Big Mamie, and I do a story time on board the battleship on those weekends, and that just eventually grew and grew into something that I now do on the side.
Staring at that woman, and then that woman said to Christine, she said,
"Oh, do you know what I do with these red nails? And these red lips?"
And Christine shouted out, "No!" And then she slammed the window shut. She raced across the room. She ran right underneath her bed, and that's where she slept that night, underneath her bed, with all her smelly, sweaty socks and sneakers. It wasn't very pleasant. Well, the next night came, and Christine once again got ready for bed. She turned down the covers to her bed, she fluffed up the pillow, she put on her favorite pajamas, the ones with the feet sewn at the bottom, and the pink unicorns all over them. And then she took her favorite teddy bear down from the shelf, that old worn teddy bear with the missing button eyeball and one ear falling off, and she took him over to the window to say goodnight to her friend the moon. And when she opened up the window on this night, she was there again. That strange old woman with a chalk white wrinkle.
Well, yes, I hope to. It's very gratifying to hear, to see children that come back, and they're much older now, children that I've had years ago come to the library through a class visit or through an outreach that I've done, and they'll come up to me and say, "Mr. Mello, oh, that story that you read or that story that you told us when I came to the library, I still remember that." So that's very gratifying to hear. Or when they say, "I've told that story at a birthday party or around a campfire or something." So yes, I do hope that in some way children will remember these stories and keep these stories alive. It's all part of the oral tradition. And so if I can inspire someone or have inspired someone, that's just wonderful. What my future holds, well, I hope to be able to share the excitement that's attached with reading and share books with children for as long as I can, tell my stories for as long as I can, and for however long people will listen.
We are
the
Take
Two
Tandem Tellers. We take turns
talking,
and sometimes
we speak together.
This is my friend Anne-Marie Forer from Warwick, Rhode Island.
And this is my friend Cindy Kalavy from Portsmouth, Rhode Island.
And we sing songs and tell stories all over New England.
Oh, I got started, I was the children's librarian at Bradley Hospital for many years, and one day I used to do a program called Current Events, and it was the Great Smokeout Week, and the teenagers asked me if I smoked. And I told them no, and I started telling the reason why, which involved a new car, my father, and almost crashing it because I was trying to light up a cigarette. And when I turned around and looked at the kids, they were like, it reminded me of when I was little, and my Aunt Betty would tell stories about their growing up and how wonderful that was. And so I decided to be a storyteller. It was working with teenagers. So that's how I got into it.
And my background's in musical theater, and I came to Rhode Island to do summer stock in '73 and wound up marrying the guy that played my husband in the show in '74. When we had children, there was a notice that came home there was going to be a storyteller at the school. So, of course, I went and saw and said, I can do that. You get to play all the parts. You don't have to audition, and nobody can tell you you're the wrong type. And I had a teenager at one of my shows said, my mom made me bring my little sister, and I thought I was going to hate it, but I really liked all the stories.
And that was quite a while back, wasn't it?
Yeah.
For me.
And then we met each other through a storytelling group and decided to start working together on a cable TV show and found that we didn't kill each other in the editing room. So we knew we were a team, and so we started the Take Two
Tandem.
Tellers.
We take turns
Talking.
and sometimes
we speak together.
We are going to tell you a story from Africa.
Yes, from Africa.
Africa. And there is a song in this story,
That's right.
so
We need your help with it.
we thought we would teach it to you so you could participate in this story. Yeah, so we'll just start it like this.
Start with a little rhythm. Don't get fast,
All
because
right.
I'm slow.
Fanga lafia ashe ashe. Fanga lafia ashe ashe. Fanga lafia ashe ashe. Fanga lafia ashe ashe. Ashe very loud. Ashe ashe. Ashe ashe. Ashe ashe. So that's all you have to do. Is everybody help. Can we get you grown-ups to help too?
Go ahead, we won't
Oh,
watch you.
I was going to say there's no cameras in the room, but I'm sorry.
Liar, liar, pants on fire.
Well, I'll tell you why. It's so important for young children to see their parents having fun and enjoying the show. You are, I'm going to give my speech, you are your child's best teacher at this time in their life. When they turn 13, they don't want to know you exist.
Until you're about 24, and then they realize, gee, how smart they got.
And they come
All
home.
of a sudden, overnight.
So please enjoy. Here we go. Fanga lafia ashe ashe. Fanga lafia ashe ashe. Fanga lafia ashe ashe. Fanga lafia ashe ashe. Ashe ashe. Ashe ashe. Ashe ashe. Ashe ashe. Big drum roll here. So you're probably wondering what that means.
What does that mean?
It means welcome, we come in peace, basically. Tell, it's fun. And for me, I work with a lot of preschools as a solo artist, and it supports language and literacy and communication and listening and focusing. And it's fun to play with them. They're a very wonderful audience, very forgiving, not critical. It's just plain fun. And then I get to go home and the teacher gets them for the rest of the day.
And storytelling is kind of like being on stage, except you don't really have to memorize all the words, as
Oh, thank
Anne-Marie
God.
well knows. We do a lot of improv. So it's just wonderful. I love being in front of people and making them laugh and maybe forget their troubles for a while. And so that's why I love to storytell with Anne-Marie. A long time.
Long time. Oh, at least 24, 25 years for me.
I'd say the same.
About
So
the same.
together we have 50 years of experience.
Yes. Who or what influenced? She did.
It's all her fault.
Well, I think the other tellers that were in Rhode Island at the time, we had a nice group, and they were influential in getting me started.
Yeah.
And,
Well, it was Milbury Birch who was the storyteller at the school
yeah.
that day that inspired me to find out what storytelling was and getting involved with the Connecticut Storytelling Center and then the Johnny Cake Storytelling Festival.
You used to run
And
a festival too.
That's right, the Rhode
Way
Island
back
Storytelling Festival for 3 or 4 years till I burnt out.
when. Yeah.
And then there was, we took a road trip to
Jonesboro.
Jonesboro,
Oh, yeah.
where we told on the telling grounds where anybody can tell.
So we can
But
say
we could say we told at Jonesboro. Yes,
That's
we
the
did.
big
Yes, we did.
national festival.
And Little Rest Storytelling, which had been a monthly group. There's Lanes, which I
League for the
think,
Advancement of New England Storytelling.
yeah, they've changed their name now. I think they're just New England Storytelling.
Yeah, I
Yes,
guess.
we were both on the board of that for a while. And we still do stuff with Connecticut Storytelling.
Lot of stuff.
We did a workshop at their festival last year, so we get around.
This is a story. Well, you explain what pourquoi means. You're so good at that.
Pourquoi story. Pourquoi is a French word, and it means why. Why?
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 Pourquoi?
Why is the door open?
Why? I don't know.
Somebody close the door. A pourquoi story answers a question. Why is something the way it is? In this story, it answers the question of why leopards have spots, why turtle has a shell, and how the drum came to be.
Let me tell them a little bit about this drum.
Okay.
Because it has a special name.
Yeah, it's called drum.
It's called djembe. Everybody say djembe.
Djembe.
Djembe. It's a Swahili word that means drum. It's this kind of a drum. It has this hourglass shape, sort of like me. I digress. Djembe. Everybody say djembe again.
Djembe.
All right. What letter of the alphabet does djembe start with?
J. Jem.
Oh, I can't reach it. No, it doesn't. It starts with the letter D. It's a silent D. You know about silent E, right? Well, in Swahili, there's a silent D. So if you're reading a folk tale from Africa, you might come across the word. It's spelled D-J-E-M-B-E, and you would pronounce it djembe, as if it started with the letter J. So that's what this drum actually is called. But I think we should start our story.
I think so too.
Once upon a time, long, trust me, very long years ago, the animals awoke to a special sound. Bored to death, I guess.
I can't even begin to
I
imagine
can't
what the
yeah.
answer to that question would be. Where would I be? I'd probably
Florida?
be doing, yeah, Universal Studios, yes. Halloween Horror Nights. Ah!
Yeah. Well, she used to be a tour guide for the Ghost Tours in
Yes,
Newport.
I was the original ghost host for Newport Ghost Tours, and my husband and I had a history tour that we did, Newport 101, for a while. So I guess I'd probably be walking the streets.
And I'd be right
Walking
behind
the
her,
streets
yeah.
telling stories.
I
Hey, you
also-
want to hear a story?
I also do a lot of music, so I'm into bluegrass. I just got back from bluegrass camp
Yes, that's right.
in West Virginia, so probably I would be doing more music. But this is so much more fun to be with the kids and to mix it all together, and to be with her. She met me down, and we came back together.
That's right. I'm sure there's some
Nice.
kids sitting there thinking, I can do that.
And
You
I-
don't have to memorize anything, and there's no test at the end.
There's no test. There's no criteria, except that your audience lets you know when you're, well received or not. I've had teachers say to me, "Ooh, I think I'd like to do that when I retire," and I said, "That's great,
And there's
it
also
up.
been instances where we've done workshops in classrooms, and the child who the teacher never thinks is the best in the class is the one that excels in this, finds their niche.
Yeah. I've actually taught it in my neighborhood school for a number of years. Went in, I started with third grade telling, and then fourth and fifth grade, it was fourth, fifth, because they didn't have a sixth, actually groomed them to be tellers, similar to what Karen Chase does.
In New Bedford.
Yeah, but I did it in Warwick,
Yeah,
and it was fun
yeah.
until they ran out of funding. So there you go.
And I've gotten some jobs from the Rhode Island State Council on the Arts where I am a folk artist. I'm on their education roster. And so I've gone into schools for a residency. In fact, we both did a school in East Province where the theme was math and poetry. And we were able to meld those two and deliver the goods.